every sunset on a holy night on a long black road of the tears I cried.
Yo, what up? It's your boy Stu. I'm back with another one. And today, on the topic at hand, we have Beyonce and the Buffalo Soldiers. The Buffalo Soldiers were a group of segregated black men during the Civil War. It was a regiment that helped with the Great Plains War and the Native American War, which was called the Indian Wars. And they also participated in the Trail of Tears, which saw the forced migration of hundreds of thousands, if not maybe a million. I'm not sure. I have to look up the numbers, but there were so many involved. But Beyonce recently wore a T-shirt shining light on the Buffalo Soldiers, and it wasn't in the best tone. There was a message on the back of the shirt. Here, I'm gonna post the message, but it basically says that the Native Americans are the enemies, which is fucking crazy work because they aren't. And I saw people saying ignorant shit like, "Oh, the Native Americans own slaves. Certain groups of Native Americans capture Indians and brought them back to their clan, their masters and shit like that." Like, yeah, some did that, but here is where it's harmful because the people who are doing it are generalizing all Native Americans when in actuality all Native Americans did not own slaves. All Native Americans did not participate in the capture of slaves. So it's very ignorant. And the lack of knowledge behind what's being said, like it's just being spouted like it's the truth of all. And as black people, I feel like we should be careful of spreading harmful rhetorics about other people because at the end of the day, the Buffalo Soldiers like help America in a way. Yes, they did, but they were kind of like forced. They were given the bare minimum. They weren't given very good weapons, very good horses. Their food was not the same as their white counterparts who led their group, which is just like, you know.
The origins of the name Buffalo Soldier is something that is still debated by historians to this day. Some say Native Americans called Buffalo Soldiers that out of respect for their courage and resilience, while others say that their name comes from black hair resembling the hair between the horns of the buffalo. Others argue that Buffalo Soldiers got their name from raiding and destroying and killing Native Americans and stealing their buffalo robes and wearing them as their own, hence the name Buffalo Soldier. Something we have to remember in this case is that history is written by the victors, and that the relationship between Native Americans and Buffalo Soldiers was one that was dictated by white supremacy and settler colonialism. There's documentation that shows that Native Americans never wanted to fire upon African Americans unless they absolutely had to, because they wanted to aid with the African Americans to fight off the white dominated system. And the Buffalo Soldiers were often sent to protect Native Americans on native reservations from mobs of white scalpers, but this was mainly to preserve federal law against civilians. This was done by the 9th Cavalry, and that same cavalry went to war against Native Americans, specifically in the Battle of 1874, the Battle of the Red River, where they burned villages and cleared plains for the white settlers. These raids would continue into the West as Manifest Destiny was also used to expand the settler colony. Not all Buffalo Soldiers agreed with this, and many of them left the Buffalo Soldiers, like historian George W. Williams, because he felt like it was wrong to kill the Native Americans like the whites did, later became a historian. In addition to this, other graduates of West Point, where the Buffalo Soldiers originated, while others like General John J. Pershing were proud to earn the nickname Blackjack, leading a company of the 10th Cavalry against bandits and Native Americans in Montana. Some Buffalo Soldiers in the Philippines, but also in Americas, deserted completely and ended up living with Native Americans. Many Buffalo Soldiers, despite serving in the military, returned home to nothing and had disastrous lives afterwards. What I'm trying to make is that all skin folk ain't kinfolk. The point I'm trying to make is that what should be remembered is not the brave and proud accomplishments of the Buffalo Soldiers, but rather that the Native Americans and Buffalo Soldiers, as black people, were pitted against each other to serve white supremacy and settler colonialism.
But they also very much made do with what they had, as well as, you know, like being able to not be a fucking deserter, not fucking being traitorous to your country and leaving, and you know other shit like that that you guys really hate. But they are on the wrong side of history very much. What they participated in was a very ugly version of Manifest Destiny at its peak and core, as they helped displace so many from their homes. They were given the name Buffalo Soldiers because of how fierce they fought, or the buffalo coats they wore. I'm gonna go on the latter half of the buffalo coats they wore in the winters when they were fighting. The amount of backlash that I'm seeing from like Black Americans that says, "Hey, we shouldn't be quick to hate on Beyonce for this." Yes, we should, because she didn't study what that shirt means. She didn't look into what the history of that group was. Yeah, they were black soldiers doing a thing. Yeah, it feels like we need representation in that way, but not in that way particular, because these men, like I said, were very much on the wrong side of history. They were forced to do things that I'm pretty sure they didn't want to do. And then I saw a guy say some real ignorant shit like, here, I'm gonna just post the video.
To all the natives talking about Beyonce and the Buffalo Soldiers, shut the fuck up. Tell the whole goddamn truth. You enslaved us. That's why the Buffalo Soldiers had no problems eradicating your asses. Tell the whole goddamn truth. Excuse me, the Buffalo Soldiers was born in 1866, and the Cherokee did not actually free their slaves until 1863. You think 3 years is enough fucking time for me to goddamn forgive you? Even after Django was freed, do you know Django still took that money? Like many people did. You give us the option to take down people who enslaved us, we'll have no problem with it. Even the people who didn't enslave us, like the freaking Creek Indians, they would turn us in to slave catchers. So you got what the hell you deserved. Don't cry. Don't deflect. The moment you freaking deflect, you just make me that much angrier. As someone who's a direct descendant of people who were actually enslaved by the goddamn.
So as you can see, he just brought up the same things I said earlier. That the Native Americans had slaves, that they would catch us and bring us back to the masters when they round us up, or whatever. They just had parties that would see us. All right, bring them back. Well, like I said, he's generalizing, and he's spewing things that shouldn't be just said, like it's like all facts about the Native Americans. He's spilling the very hateful rhetoric that the colonizers showed us. And you're like, what do you mean that they've showed us? These are the same things they say to justify things they've done. Yeah, they had slaves, but were any of those men's the Cherokee slaves? We don't know that. You don't know that. I don't know that. And to say that it is okay for them to do what they did to the Native Americans, it is not, because in any way, shape, or form was it okay for what was done to us after slavery was over, after we were given our rights, or 3/4 of our rights, or whatever the fuck, man. You know what I mean? But it's not a very good narrative to push off when you don't know all of it. You may think you know all. You may thought had it. No, you did not have that, sir. No, what you said was just very. And we have people who are speaking their mind, like this woman right here.
Beyonce, what the fuck? We're the enemy? Bitch, did we come to your fucking country to bother y'all? We're not the ones that jumped on some ships and crossed the whole fucking ocean to go kidnap y'all and bring you back in chains. That wasn't us. We're not the ones that slaved y'all out for 400 years. We were the ones standing next to you while they were slaving y'all out. That was the most tone-deaf shit I've ever seen from a fucking celebrity, especially somebody like you. But I'm glad that now we see you for who you really are, and we see everything for what it really is. You said what you said, you did what you did, now stand on that shit.
Frustrations are extremely valid. I'm not gonna be one of those black folks that's gonna sit here and, tone police you until you're not allowed to feel that way about the shirt that Beyonce had on. You're allowed to feel any type of way you want. I personally don't think that, even though 5 tribes out of 600, owned slaves back in those days, that most of you guys wanted to own us or hate us. I'm not one of them that think that way. So I wanted to get that out the way, right? Um, what I have a cause of concern for is calling black women out their name. God forbid if a black person called an indigenous person out their name like that, it would be a problem. We would be called anti-indigenous. We would be called all types of things. These comments under your comment section, them talking about her hair, using microaggressions, calling black Americans imports. Like, we get it. This is your land. It was stolen from you by the white man. We were brought here against our will. I get all that. But just remember, two things can be right at once. You can voice your frustration, you can voice your opinions. Just make sure you don't do so in a way where it gives everyone who is native, who is non-black Mexican, to be anti-black. Because at the end of the day, even though she is a capitalist billionaire, she is a black woman before anything. So just be very mindful of that. Because black people on the internet, we got to be mindful of that. We got to sit here and tiptoe and watch how we talk about indigenous people. It would be nice if we got the same respect, respectfully.
And as you can see, she's just basically letting it be known, like, yeah, we didn't enslave you guys, we didn't put you guys on the boat, we didn't force the mass migration on you. But guess who forced mass migration on them? Us and the white folks. You're like, what do you mean us? Yes, the Buffalo Soldiers, like I said, they participated in a Trail of Tears, which displaced hundreds of thousands and also killed thousands of fucking Native Americans through disease, fucking shootings, just pushing them through it, unknown terrain that they didn't know, walking walking thousands of miles. Like, I mean, thousands, and we all know how big America is. Now imagine walking back then, uncharted. So that's what I mean. And it's just that when we have people who say things like him, who don't bother to educate themselves sometimes, or sorry, when we have people who don't bother to educate themselves sometimes, it it's very harmful, because as a people we have to know when to speak on certain things and we have to know when to be quiet. Now, for Beyonce, that was really fucked up, because as a marginalized group, we should also know when we are impeding on another marginalized group. And our ignorance, yes, it is shown, but her ignorance, I felt it came from a place of like, hey, I feel proud of these guys. Look what these guys did. When you just threw that shirt on and like the back of it didn't give you an inclination that something was going on or that something was wrong. And I know you're like, damn, Stu, like you might get some flack for fucking coming at Beyonce. Well, I don't give a fuck. I can't just be this person who's like, oh, we're this and we're that, or we have to be better, and I can't speak on when we're not being better. And this is a case of when we're not being better. You could have came out with any type of shirt on. You should just came out with a Houston, Texas fucking jersey, if you ask me. You're in your hometown, but to come out in the Buffalo Soldier shirt and just not fully study the history is crazy. And I know this video is a little different from my other videos. This one's going to be shorter because I just don't like have too much to say on it. Besides, like, just it was very ignorant, and we should look up into these things ourselves. Like I said, sometimes I'll give you a deep dive. Sometimes I won't give you that much of a dive. But you have to know that when we move and we do things that are forcing a certain type of things into the light, or a person or someone or a group, we have to very much do our due diligence. Now, am I saying that it was all on Beyonce to know what she was doing and how she was doing it? 100% because there was no way. Like I said, you just read that shirt and threw it on, or you got it custom made with that saying on the back. That's fucking diabolical. But she's lost millions of followers already this year, or hundreds of thousands. I'm pretty sure hundreds of thousands. She's just lost so many followers this year because of things she's been doing. And I just feel like this is a time to educate instead of bash. And I know I did a little bashing, like, hey, she should use her fucking brain. But no, this is more of an educational video. And for the people in the back saying, well, whatever, and still choosing to be ignorant, well, fuck you and have a nice day. And please use your brain next time. And it's your boy Stu, and I'm out.
Driving away while I watch them ride with my dreams away to the summer sunset on a holy night on a long black road of the tears I